and welcome back to the Alexa Show. Just so excited to be back here live in the studio. I know it's been so long, but I'm just so excited to be back here with you, the viewers, answering questions from all of you. Well, tonight's show is going to be the Ask Alexa series, where I'm answering questions from you, the viewers. Again, please send in all questions to info@askalexatherapy.com, and all names will remain anonymous. Well, let's get started to our first question. Dear Ask Alexa Therapy, how do I stop the negative self-talk? I catch myself doing this on a regular basis. This is such a common question I hear so much in my private practice, but also from you, the viewers, and the listeners, that so many times we catch ourselves speaking negatively to ourselves. And sometimes we don't know how long it's been going on. Sometimes that is just our go-to negative monologue that plays and plays in our heads. And what is so crucial about adjusting that monologue to more of a positive self-talk is the more you keep telling yourself, subconsciously, consciously, all of these negative comments, statements, views on the world, you start training your brain to see out of that perception. So your lens in life is through that self-talk. So this is such an incredible question, and so many people do suffer from negative self-talk. I think the first huge step is that you're aware of it. That is so important to be able to catch yourself and say, wow, I'm really speaking to myself in a negative manner. I'm very critical of myself. I speak to myself even though I would never speak to somebody else like that. And that is so important to be first aware of it and identify it. Next is to be aware of what you are saying to yourself. And I know sometimes it's hard to do that when we're in the throes of it, or if it's been so common that this negative monologue is running and playing so many times in our head. If you can grab the headlines of it, maybe even stop when you catch yourself, write it down, jot down a couple of headlines, and then also let's try to figure out, where do these negative self-talk connotations come from? Is it coming from you? Is it really your voice speaking to yourself like that? Or is it from someone in the past? It could be a parent, a colleague, a friend, a significant other, and sometimes even a teacher from when you were younger. Because so many times these different negative self-talk has been learned or has been taught to us by somebody else. And sometimes these other people don't realize they're doing it, and sometimes they do. So it's really important to be aware and identify that you are speaking to yourself in a negative manner. And two, grabbing the headlines of it. What is it really based on? Then I would ask you to really take a look at the frequency, the duration, and how long that this has been going on. When did it start? Has this been starting since childhood? Has it been since you started a new job, since you moved, since you started dating somebody else? And I think it's important to be able to say, okay, we're not blaming the job, the person that you're dating, or a past maybe toxic friend, but sometimes it can be part of their responsibility of why you are thinking this and why you are speaking to yourself like this. So first, again, find the origin. Then find out, when is it happening to you? Is it happening every day? Is it every couple of days? Do you find it's in the morning when you first wake up? Is it around lunchtime? Or is it at the end of the day when you're ready to go to bed? A lot of my clients in my private practice seem to find it first thing in the morning. As they open up their eyes, they're waking up feeling calm, feeling like there's a bright day ahead of them. And then all of a sudden these negative thoughts, maybe these anxious feelings start racing through their mind, which starts clouding their perception, their view, their lens of the day. So what I would tell that person, especially if it's in the morning, is to prepare yourself. Some mornings maybe it doesn't happen, but some mornings when it does happen, I want you to be prepared. Be prepared with a positive affirmation for you to be able to recite. That can be something from the Bible. That could be positive affirmations. That could be a meditation. That could be something that really means something to you, that is calming, that is peaceful, that brings you joy. Sometimes people think about being in the mountains, being on the beach, going running, or spending time with a young child or a puppy. So I'd really want to make sure you have that prepared. So when you wake up in the morning and you start having those thoughts and you start feeling those feelings, sometimes your heart is racing, you feel a heaviness, you feel a pit in your stomach or turning, that you're able to say, okay, let me take a deep breath in through my nose, out through my mouth, get a hold of yourself and really start to say, let me concentrate on those positive affirmations. Some examples will be, I am good enough, I'm okay, everything is going to be all right. I am powerful. I am safe. And sometimes we can also read different Bible passages or different passages from whatever book that you do read, any religion that you study from, that can help strengthen and resource those positive affirmations and those positive feelings. And again, this will also be discussed in my second question that's going to be about EMDR. So I'm really excited to be able to answer this question first and then the second question with EMDR so I can go further and further into it. So again, let's do the positive affirmations in the morning. You could also do a calm, safe place. Again, that could be the beach, the mountains, a special place that you've been to or you haven't been to, that's something that's happy for you, that's calming from you. And make sure though, I know sometimes we like to involve other family members, friends, but I'd really impress that you say, use this just for yourself, because sometimes other people can bring other feelings along. So I want to make sure that this positive, happy place is something that really comes from you. So you're not depending it or relating it to somebody else to give you that happiness. So let's say your negative thought and your thinking comes at lunchtime or while you're in the middle of working with a client or here actually on television, and all of a sudden these thoughts are feeling. And you know you can't actually stop what you're doing, and you also don't want others to be able to see what's going on. So another thing that you could be doing is counting back from 1,000 in your head. Slowly. And I know sometimes it's hard as we're here sitting talking, but start training your brain to think of the numbers, to think of things that don't have an emotional value to it. That's the important thing. As I say, numbers. Would it be rearranging your sock drawer in your mind or your closet? Or something I could actually do right here is saying 5 senses. What do I see? What do I hear? What do I smell? What do I taste? And I can be able to do this while other people will not notice what's going on. And that will actually start decreasing the anxiety, also decreasing the negative thoughts, and bringing you back to a baseline of calmness. Now, also, a lot of my clients seem to get this negative self-talk before they're going to bed, as they're going to bed, which I would always ask them, make sure you really look at and explore your sleep routine. That can have a lot to do with why your negative self-talk might be very common at night. What are you listening to before you go to bed? What are you watching? I know a lot of people like to leave the television on or the radio on and fall asleep to it. And what happens with that is, even though you may not be listening or watching what's going on television, your mind is being activated. It's hearing, it's responding to what it's hearing and what it's seeing, even though you're falling asleep. And that is going subliminally into your mind and being into your thoughts. It can affect your dreams, your nightmares, your thoughts, what you're thinking about, and also of your perception of what maybe the next day would be. So one, I would say, make sure if you can, not to turn the radio or television on before you go to bed. Maybe if you want to do it an hour or two before you go to bed, that's fine. But right before you go to bed, especially a good 45 minutes, I would have a calmness. Maybe read a really quiet book, a very calming book, something that is pleasant, not something that's very intriguing or stimulates the mind. Because what happens with that is when we're stimulating the mind, it's hard to go to sleep. We're activating it to keep thinking, to also start engaging with what's going on in the book or what's going on with what we're watching. So reading something that's almost sort of boring, that's very relaxing, so we can calm your mind. And also, a lot of times, if there's a certain verse or passage or positive affirmations or meditation that you could keep listening to, because that's something you can listen to, something calming that's on the radio or on YouTube, and just focus on those words. And what I like to find is having repetition, because if there's all different words and different scenes and different things going on, it gets too much for the mind. We want it simple, we want it to the point, and we want it so repetitive that it becomes your new monologue. Instead of a negative monologue, it becomes your positive, healthy monologue before you go to sleep. And there's many, many meditations that are on YouTube, that are on social media. Look up and see what fits for you. Each person is different. Some might be really great for others, but find the one that really works for you. And it's okay in the beginning if it doesn't really work right away. It's practice, practice, practice. Keep doing it. Give yourself time. And again, no judgment. Try to get that judgment out of it so you're able to have a clear, calm, peaceful mind for when you wake up in the morning, for your afternoon, and also when you go to sleep at night. So thank you again for writing in this question. I'm just so excited to be answering all these questions each week on my Facebook Live or here during Ask Alexa Therapy, the Alexa Show. Well, let's go on to our second question. Dear Ask Alexa, I've heard you discuss EMDR numerous times during your shows. How do I know if that's an appropriate treatment for me? And then where do I look for a therapist that's qualified? Very, very important question. And yes, I have noticed and I've also discussed EMDR so many times on many of my different shows. And I am a trained clinician in EMDR. That is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. I have found such incredible results using the EMDR with clients for many, many different issues. I work with addiction, stuck thoughts, OCD, depression, anxiety, victims of sexual abuse, victims of trauma, domestic violence, and also perpetrators of abuse. So finding and figuring out if you are an appropriate match for this treatment, there's a few things that the clinician will do. I think it's important before you decide, I don't know if this treatment is for me or not, I would go to a clinician that's trained in it and make sure when I say trained in it, they did not just take a one-day workshop. And I know I'm going to get a lot of slack for that. But EMDR is so, so crucial and so powerful. That is why someone can't do EMDR on their own. And a lot of the clients that I work with said, hey, can I just get a light machine or can I just watch a light going back and forth and do EMDR on myself? No, you can't, because it is so, so crucial that you have a trained clinician that will guide you through and help you go through the tough thoughts. So finding a trained clinician, you can look at EMDRIA.com, EMDRIA.com. You can look for people who have been trained in EMDR to find that clinician. Also, you can look on Psychology Today. You could call your local health insurance and find out if there's a therapist that has the clinician training for EMDR. And then they, once you meet with them, will go through certain criteria. I can tell you some basic criteria which you would not be appropriate for EMDR. And what I find in my practice, which I cannot treat clients with EMDR, is if you're actively suicidal, if you have severe delusions, or you lose track of place and time, if sometimes you don't know what day it is, and it's not just because you've had a busy week and some days we don't know, is it Wednesday, is it Friday, is it the weekend, not something like that, but something really to the point where you don't know where you are, and sometimes you are in different places and you don't know how you get there. And why EMDR is not appropriate for those type of clients is, as we go through EMDR, we work on traumatic experiences that the client has gone through. And the EMDR will actually take you to that experience. And we will do bilateral eye movements. That's right to left. A therapist can use their hand going side to side or a light machine. And with EMDR, you will keep your head still and you will watch the light machine going back and forth. And utilizing that bilateral eye movement is really what's key to EMDR. What it does is it unlocks the stuck thoughts, the trauma lens, whatever you are looking through at your life, and it reprocesses it with a healthy cognition. As I said in my first question, positive affirmations, there's also positive cognitions, which are the same things. So EMDR, we have our positive cognitions, but we also have our negative cognitions. So an example is, say someone came to my office who had a fear of snakes. I would ask them, what is the worst memory or idea that you would have about a snake? And they would bring up, one day I was in the woods and I saw a snake and I really got scared and I couldn't breathe. And I would say, what would be the negative cognition? What is that negative feeling that snake made you feel? And a lot of them could be, I'm not safe, I'm helpless, I'm all alone. And then I would ask the client, 0, not disturbing, 10, the most disturbing. When you think of that moment right now with a snake, how disturbing is it to you now? And a lot of times people say it's a 7, it's an 8 of disturbance. And then I would ask them, where do you feel that in your body? And a lot of people feel it in their stomach, in their shoulders, in their head. And then we would start the sets of bilateral eye movements to reprocess that negative cognition with a positive cognition. And the positive cognition will be something that's opposite to the negative cognition. Each person is different, and you can find these different beliefs, these different cognitions. If you look them up on the internet, in Google, just put up looking up positive and negative beliefs, and then you find which one really rings true to you, and then you can really start working with the clinician on that. And once we get it down to a 0, you've cleared that memory. So the person would not feel, once we've cleared that memory, going back to the snake incident, would not want to go around hugging snakes and loving snakes. But they would not be looking for a snake in every corner, everywhere they're going. So there's a difference. They're not seeing that snake out of their eye lens all the time. I know this was kind of a brief example of it, but I will be going more and more into this with EMDR coming up as one of my next books starts coming out. So I will be coming out in more and more detail about EMDR. So again, I would definitely find a trained clinician for EMDR. Once you meet with them, they will go through a different protocol to see if EMDR is the appropriate treatment for you. And then you can go along with it and see how you feel about it. And I can tell you at first, sometimes it is very overwhelming. Sometimes you feel like you're reliving that moment, that trauma at the moment, but it usually just seems to pass on by, and you'll start to see that. It's almost as you're looking out the window, going on a train, and the environment is passing by quickly. That is the same thing with EMDR. So I know it could be scary, and sometimes facing these traumas, these abuse, can be very frightening, but I just also want you to know that there is treatment and there is hope, and no one is too far gone. So please always go out and seek treatment and know that you're not alone. Well, let's go on to our third question. Dear Ask Alexa Therapy, I am an adult child survivor of sexual abuse. I struggle with it every day. How do I not let it define me? This is such an incredible, powerful question that I also hear so many times in my private practice. And I think it's so important that you know, yes, this is something that happened to you, but it doesn't define you. And I know a lot of times that's easier said than done. And I know there's a lot of shame, guilt, and negativity that come along with being a survivor of sexual abuse that sometimes you put on yourself, which isn't necessary. But I think so many times when someone is a victim of child sexual abuse, and especially when it's been done to them as a child, they have been kind of taught and groomed to believe these negative beliefs. And so many years as time goes by, that trauma just reinvents itself. Again, the negative monologues, as we've discussed in the first session, in the first question, sometimes can keep going around in our head. And so many times the clients that I have that come into my office, they blame themselves and they try to not justify, but sometimes try to make sense out of something, which what I tell them is not sensible. It's hard to make something rational that's irrational. We can't try to make sense of why someone would do such a horrific act. And it is part of the human condition where we try to figure it out, especially if it was a loved one or someone that we trusted. Sometimes people want to say, well, maybe I had a part of it, maybe it was something I've done. And I'm here to tell you, no, it wasn't. This was not your fault. This is all on the perpetrator. So a way to have it not define you, if you haven't already, I would really seek professional help. Not because I want to make sure, it's not because you can't get over it on your own, that you're weak, that there's some sort of fault. It's that you've been through this trauma, abuse alone. You don't need to do it and heal on your own. It's so empowering to either be with a group, if that's something that works for you, or be with an individual and really explore it and really be able to honor yourself and find your strength, but also to rebuild or define your sense of self. Because so many times with child sexual abuse, your sense of self really hasn't been defined. It's just starting to develop. You're just starting to explore it. So when this abuse happens, it stunts you. You're developing, all of that growth is stunted because of the abuse. As I say, a lot of times when people are addicted to alcohol, drugs, things like that, the moment they become so addicted that it's taken over their lives, that's when emotionally they're stuck at that developmental stage. So whatever stage that has happened, even though you're an adult now, you're holding down a job, you're doing all of this, emotionally, if you haven't been able to really address and explore that sexual abuse, your emotional child level is still at that level where that child was sexually abused and assaulted. So that's why I find it is so important that you reach out for professional help and really explore it, address it, but also get the support. And EMDR, as I just went over in my second question, it's also such a powerful, powerful treatment tool for sexual abuse and for trauma. I work with many, many clients on that, as sexual abuse and trauma is one of my specialties. And I've just had incredible, incredible results. So I really would encourage you to seek help, to maybe seek a group or one-on-one, and also practice on, again, positive affirmations, being able to surround yourself with a healthy support group and not be alone, and also know that you're a survivor, you're strong, you're a warrior, and that there is light at the end of the tunnel. So again, everybody, I just wanted to thank you so much for writing in all your questions. I'm just so excited to be back here in the studio live with everybody. And I'm so excited to be answering your questions for you, the viewers. And I'll also keep you all posted when my second book comes out, Your Walk-In Life. I'm going to be having workshops and on Zoom and in person, so I'll definitely keep you all posted on that. Keep sending your questions to info@askalexatherapy.com. Again, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for all of your support. Have a good night, and God bless.